Hi folks, welcome to your mwis Friday Planner in association with Ellis Brigham. Now the countdown to Christmas almost complete. Let's see how things are looking through the festive period, and the coldest of the temperatures will be on Christmas Day, and the chilly conditions will hang around though for a few days after that. Longest across Scotland, milder air somewhat further to the south, and I'm afraid the general trend as we run on towards New Year does look as though the milder conditions will prevail. So if you want your wintry festive fix, it looks as though the earlier part of this forecast is of more interest to you. Let's see how things go. This is your freezing level chart starting at the beginning of Christmas Day, and much terrain is frozen across the Highlands and it's sub-zero across the hills of England and Wales. In fact, the freezing level soon dropping across these areas as well, having had slightly milder air in place overnight. The south and west of Wales maybe always stays in milder air. Now this boundary of milder and colder air will be of interest running onwards into Boxing Day, because we've got a front running into that cold air, and there's the scope for some snowfall then across the Pennines and northwards into Scotland too. Little of that I suspect getting into the Highlands. We'll have a look at those charts in a moment, but it stays at sub-zero across the hills, across northern England, across much of Scotland, well on into Boxing Day. Maybe a gradual rise of freezing level from the south across the Peak District, and later that milder air just starting to edge northwards into southern Scotland as well. Much of the Highlands though staying sub-zero. Near the west coast the freezing level will be considerably higher, maybe just above freezing point, even to higher tops here as we roll through Boxing Day and into Monday. A somewhat higher freezing level overall then into Monday, but much of the Highlands still staying sub-zero across the mountains. Really a situation, I suspect, where there's not that much change of temperature with height. We'll have some frost overnight into the valleys and the glens across much of Scotland, whereas across England and Wales typically milder conditions will stay around. And if you're looking for sub-zero mountains, well, it's the Highlands that's left with that, I suspect, into Tuesday, typically above freezing point across England and Wales. A few pockets maybe on the highest tops where there is still some snow and some ice to be found, so be aware that that will still be there, but air temperatures will generally be above freezing point. And as we head towards the middle of the week, it's the milder air that looks as though it then comes pushing in from the southwest, and all regions generally go above freezing. We might just hang on to some near freezing conditions across northern Scotland. The detail by the end of the week is a bit sketchy, but I suspect many places are under a milder air mass by this time. The chart for Christmas Day looks like that. We have a strong east to southeasterly wind across the country, gale force pretty widely across many higher mountains, and very gusty conditions as well through the passes and some lower slopes just to the west of the higher hill groups, with very cold air in place then across much of northern Britain. That wind chill factor is significant through the day on Christmas Day. In terms of precipitation, not too much around, a few snow flurries in places, something a bit wetter across the south of Wales, brightest conditions toward the western side of Scotland. This is how things look on the precipitation then, and where there's some shading on the colours, that's where there's some snow indicated. It's mostly flurries across Scotland and the Pennines, but just expect there to be a few snowflakes to be around at times through the day. Now then, as we take things onwards into Christmas night and Boxing Day, the front which lies to the south will start to push further northwards, and that will give some snowfall across the hills of Wales for a time. And then as we go further into the night, eyes turn toward the Peak District and the Pennines for snowfall here, possibly to quite low levels for a spell, as that freezing level is pretty low. So as we head onwards into the start of Boxing Day, the Peak District, the Pennines, into the Lake District too, starting to see some snowfall. Still a bit of uncertainty how quickly that front will move northwards into Scotland as we head onwards into Boxing Day daytime. The scope for snow for several hours across the Pennines, into the southern uplands and the Lake District as well, turning a bit sleety and wetter lower down from the south, and maybe just starting to fade out a bit as that front weakens through the day. Now the southern and southwestern parts of the Highlands may well see some snowfall as well, again just depending how quickly that whole front begins to move northwards. Further north and west across Scotland though, the greater likelihood you see a dry and bright day. Still quite a windy one in places, with again gusty conditions as east-southeasterlies, maybe the wind dropping a bit lighter though to the south of that frontal zone across England and Wales, and some showers of rain starting to move into West and South Wales through the day. That temperature contrast then from north to south across the country. Much terrain frozen though across Scotland and the north of England. Now, quite a complicated weather story into the start of the new week again, with weak zones of low pressure drifting around slowly. Temperatures stay on the chilly side, so much of the mountain terrain is staying frozen, and with snow cover across much of the Highlands and northern England likely as well. Lower down, generally above freezing point, so the snow is more on the hills. There could be some further flurries across the eastern and northern parts of Scotland. Some uncertainty how far north that front starts to drift, but it's quite a weak feature, so not amounting to a huge amount in total. The risk of some further rain, though, edging up into the south of Wales, and a bit of patchy rain may get further into the Peak District as well. Again, uncertain how far northwards that front starts to drift. Mostly light winds for many places compared to the weekend, but some gustiness possible across the Welsh mountains. Now, by Tuesday, we're drifting back slowly to a southwesterly airflow, but the cool conditions are still around and much of the mountain terrain staying frozen with snow cover where it existed from previous days, and many places may get away with a dry day, but rather cloudy, some banks of fog across the hills, maybe some mistiness lower down in places as well. Gustiest of the winds across west and northern Scotland as southwesterlies may drive a few showers in here. They may have some hail or some snow in them, and at times rain at lower levels around the west coast. The proper push of milder air, though, starting to approach from the southwest behind the warm front shown south of Ireland. As we go forwards into Wednesday, that milder air is likely to move across all areas, temperatures rising then well above freezing point, but just on the forward side of that front where the chillier air still exists across northern Scotland, there could be some further snow for a while, but likely becoming wetter for most places. A windy day as well, as southwesterly winds could be widely gale force across the mountains, so a poor day, extensive low cloud is likely as well. The weak cold front that trails back across Ireland may not do too much change to the temperatures really. In the end, it's just going to be a broadly mild southwesterly that's expected to take us into the second half of the week. It must be said there has been some variation in the computer simulations as we head towards New Year, so we watch those carefully as to where things develop, but many indications are looking for a milder southwesterly flow over a few days to take us into New Year. Some weather systems running in from the Atlantic, high pressure lies toward the south and east. So there will be some rain at times, maybe some windy or even stormy conditions possible at some point through that New Year period. Detail is very tricky. There may also just be occasions where chillier air from the northwest can just get back in, but on balance, I would suggest we're looking at a milder theme for much of the time into the new year. The general thoughts then taking us into the start of January is a bit of a mixture. We're stuck in the middle of weather patterns really, high pressure to the south and north, areas of low pressure east and west. I suspect rather unsettled at times with some wind and some rain. Temperatures varied but mild for a time, maybe just the scope with some colder air not too far away to the north to drag that back in if high pressure eventually begins to build a bit further just to the north of us. May just give something wintry in the longer range. We shall keep up to date throughout here at the Mountain Weather Information Service. Thank you to everybody who supports us, watches and follows all of our content. Have a wonderful Christmas. Enjoy the mountains safely. Enjoy some wintry weather if you can find it as well. That is your Friday Planner in association with Ellis Brigham. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.